Hello, live from a dark Monday shadow headquarters. It's a social media heavy edition of Business Pants. Ugh.
You just ruined it for everybody. Literally, everyone just turned it off.
Joined as always by Emma Lurkingstock and Matt Muscardi B. How come I haven't thought of that before?
Muscardi
Why is it
B?
the first time?
I
Emma,
don't-
have you thought of that with Matt?
No, I thought of Matt Must Party one time, and that was a good one. But no,
Matt
not
Must Party.
Just because you say it. I'm a
Just 'cause I said
3-day-old.
it.
I'm a 3-day-old donut, which means, is it really worth it? I don't
A
think it's
little
worth
hungry?
it. No,
Where's
I just
the
don't think
donut
it's worth.
from? Was
Yeah.
it a
Doesn't
high
matter.
quality donut to begin with,
Good question.
or was
But
it like
3
a
days
Dunkin'?
old? Do you really need those calories? You don't
If
need
it-
me. Get rid of it. Throw me away.
If it was a good enough donut that was 3 days old, sorry, I would probably.
I don't
still
know. I
eat
don't know
it.
if I'm
Yeah.
good enough. I don't know if I'm good enough. In today's striped scented bag, see what I did there, Matt?
I do. Striped and scented.
Nope. Striped scented.
by stripes.
Of luscious nuggets called May 16th, 2022. We try to wrap our heads around yet another horrible mass murder filmed on a social media platform owned by a
Oh,
giant,
yeah. Little light.
owned by a
little light
public
fair.
corporation.
Happy Monday.
Little light fair.
All right. We once again we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. Let's get going because we talked about this for 2 hours in pre-production. And now
And by we, you mean two old idiots talking at each other.
well,
and
Emma,
sitting
Emma
there
chirped
thinking,
up a few times.
You guys are old idiots.
Well, okay, that's true. But what I was trying to say, Matt, is that we talked ourselves out, and now I don't have anything brilliant to add. Not that
Just
I
Do
did.
add
you-
what we already added. That's what pre-production's for.
Emma,
Come on,
don't.
let's
You're
do
not allowed,
it. Come
Emma.
on,
Stop
let's
it.
do it. Let's do
Here
it.
we go.
We talked
All
about
right.
the Middle Ages. We talked about the Renaissance. We didn't talk about this. Come on, let's do it.
Ready?
Okay, there was a
Yeah.
mass shooting in Buffalo, and the gunman live streamed. Ooh, timer's up. The horrible racist shooter, of course, live streamed the attack on Twitch. For those of you who don't know, Twitch essentially is I don't know really what it is. It's a gaming, social media streaming platform owned
We
by
are streaming
Amazon.
on it right now.
Mm.
Okay, is that true?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is true.
Oh, I feel dirty.
Worse about yourself.
Before we get to our conversation, because today's mostly conversation, let me just point out a few things that were said. First of all, Twitch says it has, this is in response, Twitch has a zero tolerance policy against violence of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll just stop there. What does that policy mean? I don't understand. What does that mean?
I can't punch you
Mm-hmm.
Right, but
much as I might want to.
But I mean, we could just get into the conversation now. What does it matter? How do you have a zero tolerance policy for anything when you're live streaming something? I'm serious. I don't get it. I'm losing my mind, Matt. I don't get it.
Well, I mean,
Why have any
hypothetically-
rules if you're live streaming? Well, how could there be rules?
Well, for the same reason. I mean, that's why they have a delayed feed on, broadcast television, right? So that something.
But this is when I'm
horrific
talking
doesn't
about broadcast television. That has its own regulations.
Well,
This is not really regulated.
covered by Section 230. So Twitch is not responsible for anything on its platform, and yet has zero tolerance for some things on its platform. So you figure it out.
And Twitch went on to say, and this is important for a later story. The user has been indefinitely suspended from our service, and we are
What a
taking all appropriate
punishment.
action, including monitoring for any accounts rebroadcasting this content. There you go. Let me before we get to the conversation. Also, the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, help me out, Emma.
Yep.
Although she did not specifically name Twitch, she suggested that all platforms that allowed the suspect to spread his message of racial hatred were complicit in his crime.
Mm-hmm.
They can be, she said, here's the quote, they can be, in a sense, an accomplice to a crime like this.
Wow.
Perhaps not legally, but morally.
Yeah.
They created the platform
stopped
to allow this hate to be spewed. The act of live streaming this, the fact that this could have even be hosted on a platform, it's absolutely shocking. So here we go, Matt. Let's get to the questions. First of all, he was radicalized on social media. We know this, radicalized on the internet.
Wow. What? How does that happen?
And then Matt's already getting into that personality of Matt's. And of course, he broadcasts this live on another social media platform, Twitch. So I don't know where to begin this. Emma and I wrote some questions so let's just do it.
I wrote some questions.
Okay, Matt did too. Do we get here? I'll start with this one. Do we get to be angry at Amazon? Are we allowed to be angry at Amazon? Anyone?
Yeah, I think so.
Why? How? I don't understand anything anymore. Why?
I think that within this specific context, we can be mad at Amazon, but I also think that if you expand it to like the performative actions of Amazon, and then stuff like this happens and they throw a blanket over it and say, you don't see it anymore, but look, we donated $50K to ourselves, but we're going to pretend like it's to some organization that helps people of color, et cetera, et cetera.
So I think what you're saying is that corporations are not allowed to do the fake, like we're helping society in other ways in general anymore, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah, okay. Not just because of this.
Not
in
just
general.
because, but I think this is an extension of that. It's like, okay, you say, during summer of 2020, woo, Amazon is all pro Black Lives Matter. We're going to say some bullshit. We're going to do some PR that makes us look good. And then when it comes down to brass tacks, when they actually could do something and make a statement, yeah, I'm going to be angry with them because this is what they choose to do instead of actually doing something tangible.
Matt,
what do you like? What do we expect out of a live stream of anything? Right? Like effectively, you either kill the live streams because you can't control them, or you allow them and then pay for it later. Right? Like
we're live streaming now, right?
Is.
We are
live streaming now, and we could do and say anything and get banned after the fact.
Right.
But the point is,
what is the point?
If I am a man who finds a community of other white angry men on social media, then I tool up to kill my perceived enemies. Then I live stream as a message to my community of angry white men. There is nothing a platform can do aside from profiling me as you are highly prone to violence and an angry white man, and you shouldn't be on our platform. And there's no way that Texas would allow that to happen.
Texas? What, are you okay? You're trying to segue us to the next story?
You like what I just did there?
No, what I really don't like are two things. Is that Emma keeps saying brass tacks a lot during the show. I realize I don't even know what she means. She always says brass tacks.
I think
tax. Is it TAX? Is it TACKS?
No, come on.
What
you
are you
never
talking
heard
about?
Saying?
I don't even know what that is. Brass tacks.
Brass
Who
tacks.
talks that way?
Just look it up. It's in the dictionary.
I'm talking to Emma.
Talking about?
I'm talking to Emma. Second of all, Emma, you killed the timer before the noise went off. I didn't even know that Matt was blabbing
Timer
too
kills
long.
itself.
Timer kills itself.
Wasn't there supposed to be a sound effect? Where's the sound effect?
I'm sorry.
Jeez, just stop your
You
whining.
need to stop complaining.
Moving on.
Move on.
Meta versus Texas and Illinois.
There.
Here we go.
She made it out.
Here we go. Here's a strange story that Matt posted last night. Meta to disable augmented reality filters in both Texas and Illinois. This is a move that comes a day after the Clearview AI settled with the ACLU and other groups in a lawsuit brought under Illinois' uniquely strong facial recognition law.
You're a pile of mess today.
It is. It's like the whole thing is a nightmare. So, okay, I will say before I get to the questions is that this isn't. They're not really stopping these outright. Meta's going to add some system where you can opt in, and of course everyone's going to opt in. So this is just to prevent future lawsuits. But what both Texas and Illinois is saying is you're not allowed to use this software for any kind of facial recognition purposes. Is that what they're doing, Matt? Help me out.
Yeah, well, the way it's really the vagary of how they've defined facial recognition. The problem is if you can recognize something is a face, that's what's required for like Meta on Instagram. Because for anyone who didn't know already that Zuckerberg owns Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp, he owns all the things, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But for him to put dog ears on your stupid Instagram post, he has to recognize what a face is. And the way the rulings have been written is so gray as to say if you can recognize a face, then you're in contravention of this law, and that's illegal. So they turned off the filters, and they're going to create an opt-in so that you can opt in and say, we give you the right to recognize my face.
Okay. First of all, we got a red state and a blue state agreeing on something.
This is my favorite part of this.
Is this important? I mean, this is the...
I think
tell me why.
Everything, Jesus, everything is just like...
I'm overwhelmed by all this because I'm realizing that we are in the middle of an important sort of moment in our history with technology and social media, and yet there is literally no time for self-reflection because it is constantly speeding forward. We're constantly dealing with the ramifications of it. The people in control, both at the companies and the government, don't understand it either.
You sound like such a dumpy old man. I'm not going
lie.
to
Well, I mean, even the next story. Yeah, go ahead, Emma. Go ahead.
I feel the need to apologize because I think that Damien's previous rant was my fault because earlier today I said something along the lines of the advancement of tech for the sake of tech advancement is scary, and I think that is what I'm getting out of Damien right now.
Yeah,
no, I'm not angst.
I'm not ranting. How dare you? I'm not.
Sorry.
Matt's the ranter. I'm just talking.
Here's the best part about this, and it goes to the question of red state and blue state agreeing. Right? You have the ACLU on one side saying that this isn't cool, and then you have Texas on the other side saying this isn't cool. And it doesn't get more disparate than those two. Illinois is kind of somewhere ACLU-ish, but not quite. What I'm waiting for is to see, will the legislatures of these places, what will they do when the constituents revolt? Because it turns out voters don't care about their face being recognized by a dumb app so they can put dog ears on it and make themselves look pretty on their Instagram feeds. They really don't care. And then when you turn off the filters, the outcry wasn't an outcry of support from constituents saying, thank God that Meta is blocked from recognizing our face and using our... No, it was, what happened to my effing filters? Where are my filters? I now look like a hideous troll monster.
People actually
I want dog ears. Yeah, there's like a lot of outcry about the fact that the filters were gone, not the part where they're being protected from a company owning and controlling their face.
So maybe what you're suggesting is that they're okay with that. Like they understand who owns Instagram.
They don't understand who owns Instagram. They're okay with it because they like the dog ears on the face. And what's fascinating is, will they vote on it?
Okay, but do you think that people have, or let me phrase that differently. Do you think that the dangers of facial recognition and the buy and sell market of facial recognition data is widely understood to be problematic? Like, do you think that people, because I don't feel like I understand. I think that
I don't either. No,
I think that hypothetically, I don't want my facial recognition data sold, so I would opt out. Sorry, we're going over time. I need to discuss this. I hypothetically know that I don't want my facial recognition data sold just because it sounds bad and I feel like bad things could come out of it, but nothing has ever actually been explained to me as to why that's bad, as to why I don't want that to happen. It just feels like I don't. So...
there are stories about this because Amazon turned on facial recognition. They had like a program for facial recognition, and some academics actually used the software on Congress, and it incorrectly identified, this is your favorite topic, incorrectly identified black congressional members as criminals, as convicts.
There we go.
What does that mean?
It's all about algorithmic bias. So
but what does that mean? What does it mean to identify them as criminals?
They face match them to criminals' pictures. They basically said
to existing criminals.
And the AI said, "Oh yeah, also a criminal."
The AI said, "Oh, watch out for that person; they're a criminal." And it, of course, was way disproportionately people of color.
You're getting your
90 to 1.
So there's that one. And I also, my question is additionally.
Yes.
Which is a real question. So if anyone actually has the answer to this question, I would be very interested in the answer. What are they actually doing with the facial recognition data that they sell or buy? Like, I just don't know what they're doing with it. What is their purpose?
My sense is they're keeping it just for future use. Like they don't.
But
maybe
what
they
are
don't
they
know
planning
yet.
on using it for
They
in the
advertise.
future?
They advertise and they sell it. So like if they can tell that you're sad, they will give you like pop-ups of coffee and say go buy some. If they can tell that you're happy, they'll give you a pop-up of an iced coffee
Why is
and
that
say
bad?
enjoy your
Why
day.
is that bad?
Like,
no one's being forced to use Instagram. Why is that bad?
because no one knows that the company is tracking it and
I don't.
It's
I'm beyond that. Really, nobody knows. Really,
I don't think. Well, I mean, people are upset about their filters. So
you've met
clearly,
people, haven't you?
I
You
have
met a person. They're idiots.
Are they ever responsible for anything? I mean, they don't know yet that all these social media platforms are owned by. They do know. I hear people complaining about Mark Zuckerberg and about Google and billionaires. They do know.
So let's put it this way. I work on this show. I talk about this stuff every single day. If anyone should know, I should know. And I'm still asking the question, what are they doing with our facial recognition software?
No, but you're asking a very specific, like how are they using this in the real world? Yeah.
I think that there's talk about algorithmic bias. I might be one of the main perpetuators of that, but regardless, there are other people talking about it.
Listeners.
But what I don't see is people talking about the dangers of buying and selling facial recognition data. I don't understand the danger of it, so a lot of people must not understand the danger of it, which is where I end up in this very confused place that I am presently in.
I don't even know if that's even what concerns me anymore, because isn't it just being accumulated everywhere we are now? I mean, isn't it?
Right, which is concerning.
It's not just Instagram. Yeah.
If it was the police who had facial recognition software capabilities and they had your face on record,
right,
you would be absolutely flabbergasted and annoyed because you feel like you lived in a police state. Somehow, when it's one white guy who's a college dropout who owns 80% of the social media world, who has your face in his database and can recognize you wherever you go in the entire world, you have nothing to say about it. Universe, you suck.
All right.
We got to move on from this because we're doing what we always do. We're not. It's just too difficult to land on something with these conversations, right? Because
I'll land. I'm going to land this plane.
You take Europe, for instance. Europe is basically one giant suburb. There's just people everywhere. It's over congested compared to the U.S. But there's cameras everywhere. They're tracking everything you're doing, essentially.
Yeah.
I remember we got tickets in the mail for running through a yellow light. They're just always watching. So
well, you should stop going through yellow lights.
But I'm just saying, like. And to some extent, these things are already there and being used for good, I suppose, if they're hunting down the person who killed your dog.
Damien is basically saying, I have already caught up to the depressing state of facial recognition in the world and its uses, and we all just need to.
I just don't know. This is what we're trying to.
telling us to get over it. Which
I think so too. I think we're being told to get over it.
I don't even know what I'm saying. I wish I knew it. Moving on, more stuff from Texas. There's a radical ruling now out of Texas that lets Texas ban social media moderation based on viewpoint. The Texas state law says that a social media platform may not censor a user based on the user's viewpoint, and define censor as block, ban, remove, deplatform, demonetize, deboost, restrict, deny equal access or visibility to, or otherwise discriminate against expression. So basically, they're just saying that these companies don't have the right to ban anyone, right? Like that. You're
gonna hate me for this, but I'm gonna need a definition of what a viewpoint is.
Oh no,
this is the part of the problem because and this is a disturbing thing to think and to say out loud, but. Yeah, I think you could make a case, and this case might even
make the case. Make the.
It might even get louder as we in the next 5 to 10 to 20 years, but that the jerk in Buffalo was exercising his political freedom. I mean, his racist ideology is part of this nauseating political. Hey, you guys are shaking your head. But Fox News, which we don't talk about enough, the Fox Corporation, we probably should talk about it more. No, we don't really talk about the corporation enough. But they espouse some of some of these racial theories, these racial replacement theories on on the news. Tucker Carlson, for instance. So
don't call him news. Come on.
Okay,
Yeah,
but this is a political point of view, whether you like it or not. Nazism, whether you like it or not, is yes, it's a hateful, horrible platform, but it's also at that time was a political point of view. Well, you know what I'm not trying to say here, right?
Yeah.
But play through the actual events. So a man finds community of other angry men on social media. He's allowed to have all his views and his angry views. He tools up to kill his perceived enemies. He live streams the killing. Political enemies. He live streams the killing of those people. The killing part is definitely illegal, but everything up to the killing part arguably may not be.
Yeah.
And then he's arrested for the killing part. Now, if he lives in Texas, you cannot use facial recognition software on him to identify him. That's probably generally good.
Right, but then he recorded himself.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
keep going.
but Texas says you can't. The company can't use facial recognition software on him, right? So the companies also, according to the Texas law, cannot ban or remove his account if he's expressing his viewpoint. So up to and after the killing, they can actually keep it up. He can sue Twitch and Amazon for taking down his account in Texas for everything potentially up to and including the killings themselves. If he is banned, right? If he gets banned, he can sue them for censorship. And if he doesn't get his content removed, his content lives on the interwebs in perpetuity. It's out there basically forever, inspiring a bigger community of angry men for forever. This actually, to me,
here's the problem, though. Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Which part's fantastic?
The whole thing, because you want to know how this ends.
Yeah,
this ends with Section 230 of the Communications Act being repealed. That's the only way this ends.
And then what's after that?
Because, what's after that is that companies are responsible for the content on their platforms. Because right now,
so then
Section 230 states that they're not
becomes of social media? So what becomes
social
of social media
effectively has to be dismantled because they have to admit they cannot control.
So it'll be like smaller, just like life used to be. It'll be smaller private networks where maybe like Emma and her 400 networks. Friends. Yeah,
it's like much more controlled, and you effectively stop the stupidity of Texas and Florida from infecting the entire country by creating laws that are like impossible to enforce and pointless, and everybody wins.
So
There's no more social media. I love it.
Is it a size thing? Is it a size thing? So it's like, so it sounds like it would be okay if you and your 25 horrible racist friends were plotting something horrible, say in Texas, but not if it's millions. Is that what you're saying? Like, is this a numbers thing?
If you do it on a platform.
But what if you do it? But what if you do it on like a regulated thing, like a phone company? Like you just do it.
Then they can shut you off. If you become a utility,
but they're not listening. But utilities aren't listening to your speech.
Yeah, the Patriot Act suggests that they are.
That's okay. Okay, so where are we here? This is about to wrap up on time on this one. You think this might be the beginning of the end of Section 230?
I love it, and that's exactly right. I think it appeals to the anti-woke and the woke, and I love it. Repeal Section 230.
Emma?
I think, first of all, Matt, can you give a brief explanation of Section 230?
Oh, we already did.
So Section 230, the quote is, no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. Meaning, you can publish something on Twitch or Twitter or Facebook or wherever, and Twitch and Twitter and Facebook or wherever are not considered the speaker. They are just the platform. It insulates them from what you say. So you can say racist hell speech and you can get sued or for libel, but someone can't sue Twitch for libel if you say something.
Whereas like like the New York Times, you could sue the New York Times.
You could sue the New York Times. You could sue television stations, and that's like effectively why Alex Jones is entirely off the air, because he was sued for his comments on Sandy Hook, and lost because he was sued for defamation.
Right. I guess. we're not that far away from recognizing social media platforms as publishers, right? Is that the how we're going to dismantle Section 230? Because how are they not publishers? If they publish the content and it stays up there, how are they not publishers?
That is the eternal question. But I think it unifies the left and the right, right? Like I think in a way it's like both the woke and the anti-woke can look at this and say, hey, why do you escape accountability for these things that happen, whether we think you're censoring us from saying more racist stuff or we think you're live streaming nothing but rapes and mass killings, right? Like both sides can kind of agree that they should maybe take responsibility for what ends up on their platforms.
You brought up something that we didn't really wrap up our discussion on. What about live streaming in general? Do you think we're going to eliminate the ability for people to live stream?
That would be really bad for our marketing.
Do we have marketing?
No, we don't.
Hey,
we also have no watchers.
If we have any retired marketing people who love us and you're bored, join us. Okay, let's wrap up the show with this. I'm gonna a slight pivot here because all that social media madness makes me nuts. McDonald's, Emma.
Yes.
McDonald's says it will sell. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
It's going to sell its Russia business.
Yeah.
So previously it paused operations. It's done in Russia.
Yeah.
And I ask you this, should we be applauding McDonald's for once?
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Can't do it.
That was not going to happen. Can't do it. Can't get it done.
No.
This is strange. It's like the people of Russia win. I feel like they're winning here, right? Am I wrong? This is a win.
The people of Russia are winning? Do you remember how upset they were when all the McDonald's started closing in the first place?
So you think they're going to be pissed? I know, but I meant like their health of their bodies is winning.
No.
Well, also, the caveat here is their franchisees aren't closing, right? Like only the McDonald's operated stores are closing.
Which
so
are very
85% of them.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Well, no, it's a lot. Well, it says it has 800 restaurants and 62,000 employees. That seems like a lot.
Yeah, it's of their Russian operations, 85% are actually owned by McDonald's. So they're going to close most of them, but the franchisees, they can keep them open, I believe.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
When will McDonald's leave Florida or Texas?
Well, how would we get that to happen? It would have to be on a woke or anti-woke thing, right? It would have to be.
And this is the gap to me that I can't explain, which is, yes, naked aggression of one country versus another is pretty good, clear grounds to leave. But is naked aggression against women, say, in Florida or Texas, grounds to leave? Why are we choosing one over another?
You're also overlooking the history of the West. I mean, almost every Western country has done or recently done what Russia is doing to Ukraine. I mean, Russia's not the only one.
I have to be honest. I think that I'm getting a little conspiracy theory.
Yeah, do it. Ooh, yeah.
I don't have any specific theory at this moment in time, but I feel like them pulling out of Russia is there's some underlying reason that it has not become clear to us yet, because given how much Russians seem to like their McDonald's, it feels like a profitable enough market where and of course, as you point out, McDonald's has maintained service in places where they have done just as bad things, and they haven't seemed to have a problem, which is why I'm a little suspicious.
This is real. I find this to be relatively earth-shattering. I sort of agree.
Right? Wait, there's an accounting. There's an accounting angle here too. I think what is occurred to McDonald's, work through McDonald's like you own the business, like you are the CEO of McDonald's. You were going to stay there, thinking that the conflict is going to be a short conflict, right? Like everybody said this is going to be like a 2-week, 3-week conflict. Ukraine's not set out. It's turning into a multi-month war. It is a prolonged aggression.
It could be over in July.
But it's also coupled with human rights tragedies like rapes, killing of civilians, all sorts of terrible stuff. So it's gotten worse and worse if you're McDonald's and you stayed operating there in the first place. Right. Second, from a business perspective, if you know the recovery for this is going to take a long time, like Russia's going to be isolated for a long time. It's going to be hard to operate there for a long time. If you write this off, it's what, a $1.4 billion write-off, right? And you then go search for a buyer. What you've told the market is we're writing this down, so our assets come down. The market reacts, relatively badly, but sort of they understand, right? They know that this is happening, and they know like, oh, okay, they're only down like 2% in the last week, right? So they're not exactly getting crushed anymore.
I no longer know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about anymore.
Then. Yeah. When they find a buyer for these restaurants, which they will, they get to go back to the market and say, we recovered 1.2 billion of our 1.4 billion. And the market says, great, that wasn't much of a loss considering there was a war going on. This ended up great for us. So McDonald's wins here. It's like the conspiracy theory is a little bit right.
I don't know.
That's more along the lines of what I was thinking.
Into that. So I'm not buying into that. This is not, McDonald's never wanted to sell its business in Russia. There's no win here. There's no win.
But they didn't have a choice. The war happened. Like, what are they going to do, sit there for 2 years?
I'm not convinced that Matt's exact theory is correct. However, it is more along the lines of what I was thinking. And additionally, from a historical context, if I'm not remembering incorrectly here, I'm pretty sure that when 32 years ago, when McDonald's first opened in Russia, I'm pretty sure that was a big deal post-Cold War. It was like, oh, we're having an American
Huge
establishment, like an enormous American establishment reopen in Russia. And it was sort of the equivalent of, the Berlin Wall falling. It was, it's back open to society now that McDonald's is there in America, aka McDonald's has given it its stamp of approval. So then McDonald's doing the opposite and taking it away feels like a very similar historical marker to me.
Wake me up when McDonald's stands up for human rights, period, and leaves Florida and Texas for like violating human rights of women.
So you don't think they deserve any credit for this one?
I think this is purely strategic. I don't think it's about like the morality play of war and Russia.
I don't think it's about morality. I don't think at all it's about morality. I think that when McDonald's entered Russia, they were basically like, okay, our relations are probably just good enough that if we can get into Russia early, we can profit. Like, it wasn't about mending relations with Russia. It was about getting in early enough to make a profit. Similarly, in this case, pulling out early enough to maintain some financials that they're concerned about also makes sense to me.
No, I don't really, because they're not. There's no financial hit staying in Russia unless there's like a boycott domestically, which we. I mean,
no. Well, right now, aren't they paying all of their Russian McDonald's employees?
Right, but they could leave the stores open.
They could, but they'd have to pay for it.
Pay for it how?
When
you think Americans are going to boycott?
Continues to isolate Russia. Yeah, the cost is going to be prohibitive to actually operate there. Like, you got to transport goods.
Look, it's the same thing. This is why I picked this.
Take rubles.
This is why I picked this, because if you circle back to the beginning of the show, a lot. This is not the first time there's been a horrible mass murder on Twitch. It's happened on other platforms too. People get outraged. They don't quit their apps. They stay with them. Let's say McDonald's stays in Russia, keeps operating, because really, I mean. To what extent are the Russian people complicit in this war? I don't know that they're directly complicit. So if they stay in Russia, stay operating, what's the effect? How are customers in America or in the West or even in Asia? What are they going to do about it? They're not going to stop going to McDonald's.
Well, that actually is a great point. Sort of about staying and going.
For once,
right? Like, but. Like, I do feel like if you're on Instagram posting about human rights and fighting for like equality or whatever, and you're doing it on Instagram or you're doing it on Twitch or you're doing it on these platforms, you're already contravening your own message, right? Like, if you're McDonald's and you're leaving Russia, but you're not leaving Florida, it's not about morality. It's not about doing the right thing. If you go to McDonald's here and like hate what they're doing over there, there's certain levels of hypocrisy we can all tolerate. But I wonder when like the bill comes due for some of the kind of mass hypocrisy. If people really hate like social media, or social media companies or Zuckerberg, or like, don't be on them. Like, but we're all fucking on them.
Can I sue people for staying and using these platforms?
Oh God, what a great!
Why can't I sue people? Why can't I sue all the hypocrites who stay on Twitter, as an example? And right for maintaining
viewpoint.
Because the only reason why these platforms are so powerful is because the users don't leave and they amass their power by the active use of them, these companies. So why can't I sue the users who preach, how terrible social media is and yet keep using it? Why can't I do that?
Yeah, you didn't even couple that with there was a law that Texas passed that in the law it allows citizens to sue companies and each other. Like citizens become deputized to sue everybody.
But I thought companies were corporations were people and you couldn't sue them.
It came full
Very
circle.
confusing.
Let's
so I hope you
right there.
realize what we've done here is that we're expressing confusion because it is confusing. This has actually all been scripted. This has all been meticulously scripted. You think that we're meandering and there's no point, but that was the point of it. We scripted it to sound like this.
Them all.
Because
And
again,
with
as I pointed out
that-
earlier, there is no time for self-reflection in any of this madness. You know what we need to do? We need to start a whole country, like a New Zealand, for instance, and that could be our R&D, our incubator.
Okay,
and we can use that company to study how to get things right, and then we can apply that everywhere else because we just don't have time here to figure anything
Speaking
out.
of self-reflection,
That
let's
is
allow our
Damien
listeners
Ayn
to
Rand.
do that.
That Damien Ayn Rand, Rawless, and
Sick of it
Emma
all.
lurking, and I am Matt Muscari. We are Free Flow
Quit your
Media. Come
Instagram.
back for more live streamed non-mass killings on Twitch and anywhere you get your podcast. Goodbye.